say for a lot of people with non-apparent disabilities, we run into that catch-22 where it's either not significant enough to matter, so shut up about it and just do your job, or it's so significant that I got to figure out as an employer how to kind of get you out of my company, or get you out of doing sensitive work, or get you out of the high-powered career track that you're trying to get into, because I don't think you're up to it. What happens if X? What happens if Y? You know? And that happens to me every time I take a new job, every time I'm offered a new job. This is throughout my career. My wife, who I love, and who's my biggest source of support, she asked the question, Andy, how are you going to do that job when you're depressed? Every job that I've had, whether it was the job at Senator Harkin, the job with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the job with the National Council on Disability, and especially the job at APD, where I'm the CEO and I have to raise money and give speeches and do this stuff. Every job is, how are you going to do it when you're depressed? And I think for a lot of people with non-apparent disabilities, employers are asking that question in the back of their mind. You know, you have epilepsy, what happens if you have a seizure? You have cancer, what happens if you have a remission? You know, what happens if it comes back? You know, you have multiple sclerosis, how fast is it going to progress, and how are we going to deal with that? So that's a very common thing that people with non-apparent disabilities deal with. Even people very close to them are often asking that question, how are you going to navigate that? And the reality is, I was 34 when I was hired to be the president and CEO of APD. I had no management experience to speak of. I had like 2 people that I supervised in my life, okay? And I had no fundraising experience. My wife should have been saying to me, you're not qualified for the job. It's not how are you going to do the job when you're depressed. It's why do you think you're qualified for that job? You know, so I think that there's a tendency to focus on the disability as opposed to focusing on the skills and qualifications and the demonstrated capacity in the past. And that's my big message for you all today. If you get one thing out of this session, try in your company to keep people focused on how that person has performed in the past, what they've demonstrated in terms of their potential and their work capacity, and to the extent that they've fallen down in the past, try to treat that as a challenge for you as an employer. What can I do to enhance their productivity, to improve their performance, so that even if they end up having to be separated from the company, they've learned something because you've tried different things, and maybe you'll hit on something that's going to be successful for them. And recognize that because the disabilities are not visible or not apparent, the natural tendency of a lot of supervisors and a lot of coworkers are going to be to assume what I just described. Either that it's insignificant and therefore it's not legit, or that it's so significant that they're not qualified and therefore I'm having to do their work, or I'm going to have to do their work for them because they're not really qualified. So that to me is the big challenge that applies across a lot of non-apparent disabilities. Having said that, the whole category of non-apparent disabilities is incredibly diverse, right? I mean, you've got hearing disabilities that you're not going to know necessarily from looking at the person. You've got visual disabilities that you're not going to know from looking at the person. You've got mental health disabilities. You've got chronic health condition disabilities. There's a lot. You've got learning disabilities. There's a lot of different disabilities that you're not going to know from looking at the person. And you know, you could do an hour-and-a-half workshop on learning disabilities in the workplace. You could do an hour-and-a-half workshop on mood disorder. You know, so I'm not going to be able to get into a lot of those specifics in this presentation, but I'm happy to get into specific examples during the Q&A. And I know there's a lot of folks in this audience who have expertise in different areas of disability who may chime in during the Q&A.